Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the MyFootballWriter YouTube channel or the MyFootballWriter Spotify account. We are back for another episode of the MFW podcast to digest yet another horrific home performance. My name is Jack Wright, or NCFC Payne. I'm here with Henry Miller and Matthew Saunders. Before we get into yet another post-mortem, how have you both been, and how have you spent your bank holiday Monday, the last before Christmas Day?
All good, yeah. So I've spent the day just working really, which is good fun. My girlfriend went to see the Lion King sing along, but I didn't fancy it, so I stayed home doing some of the chores, and then we went out for a nice meal, so that was all good.
Yeah, I've not been too bad. Mainly just doing not much and praying that Salah would do well for my FBL, and he's not. So 70-point game week for me, not this week, but still a good game week.
Yeah, well, I had Jack Grealish, so he got 2 assists, so I'm happy with that, and I had Gyökeres as well, so I was happy there. But well, yeah, in terms of my bank holiday Monday, I've been quite really had the family over for some food, just quite lazy. But I'll tell you what is lazy: fat cats. Um, this podcast is, of course, sponsored by the Fat Cat and Canary. Of course, everyone knows it's the finest pub in Norwich. If you've watched all the previous podcasts, you will have known that. Of course, do pop in on match days or non-match days. I'm sure they're open and they've got fantastic beers, and it's just amazing. Thank you, Fat Cat, for being an amazing sponsor. Um, let's get into the actual footballing side of things, which again. Uh, was pretty disappointing at Carrow Road. That's now 2 opening losses to start a campaign. I think that's the first time that this has happened since the 60s, I think I saw online. Yeah, Liam Manning just can't get past teams beginning with M. Millwall and then Middlesbrough. Um, Off the back of kind of 2 very decent and promising away victories. Um, Another kind of crash back home with a really kind of subpar showing. It's really kind of 1 step forward, 2 steps back at the start of this campaign. Yeah, what you guys? What was your kind of overall assessment on the performance as a whole? I mean, generally, the reaction of the fan base has been pretty negative, as you'd expect with 2 losses at home to begin the season. Is it that bad? I mean, is this kind of an overriding concern, or do you see this as just kind of a blip?
I think it's difficult because you need to look at it you can look at it from two ways. First of all, you can look at it of just another game, and in that, if you have that mindset, then it was a really abject performance. Whilst Norwich did play all right, the mistakes they made were absolutely criminal. And if Norwich have any aspirations to make the top 6 at all, you cannot make individual mistakes like we did against Middlesbrough. However, on the flip side of that, it is what match day 3 out of 46. So yeah, there's still a lot of time to play for. And Liam Manning last season was probably fortunate to be in a job around Christmas time. To be honest, he had quite a slow start with Bristol City last season, and then they just crept up the table. So this is normal, I guess, for Liam Manning and a Liam Manning side. But yeah, look, I'm sure we'll get to the mistakes, but yeah, I think it's that is really concerning because whether that is a formation thing or not, I personally don't think that any formation can excuse losing the ball to a simple 3 or 4 yard pass, whether that's from Kovacevic or in the midfield. I simply cannot excuse that. So, yeah, a bad day at the office, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think in terms of the results, I'm not too worried because I think we've got results that fit us well. Millwall, maybe, yeah, you can not expect a win, but you wouldn't be surprised if it's a win. Middlesbrough is a difficult game for us. It always has been, whether that be home or away. I think back to last year, the 3-3 we had at home, where we got a bit lucky to get a draw out of that. But it's the way we've been doing it, the way we've been performing, which is the big thing, the big argument of, well, what we're doing, this isn't good enough. And frankly, it isn't. I think when you look at this team, you do expect a lot better. And it's not in complicated stuff. We're not trying to do complicated stuff in this formation, I don't think. It's very sort of, maybe not simplistic in a way because it's different. But it's still, when you get to know it, I think it's fairly simple stuff. But in terms of, the passing isn't good enough. What we're doing with it and the decisions we're making isn't good enough. And at times we do seem to lose that creative spark, which, with players that we have even starting, like, you'd expect Marcondes to be like last season where he's creating a lot. Cernat, Wright, even. I know he's sort of a more defensive player, but especially that midfield just seems so sort of devoid of confidence. But like Henry said, it's game week 3. We can't afford to get on everyone's back ultra hard right now. I think we can criticize the tactics and what's going on, sure, because there's things to be criticized. But you can't go onto Twitter or go in the stands, whatever, and say, well, this isn't working. We need to change everything up. We need to sort everything out because it's a big overreaction to that sort of problem. And yes, we need to be better, but if we change everything now, it makes life so much more harder for us in at the very least the next couple of months. So, I think it does need to be addressed and quick, these basic mistakes, but we can't afford to get too angsty and too angry about it yet, at the very least.
Well, I think trying to tell Norwich City fans not to overreact, you just can't do that. We're allowed to boo at half time, and we're allowed to tell our highly experienced coach who's managed several EFL clubs that his tactics are way off. We pay our season tickets. But yeah, I mean, I think what it stems from is us being quite spoiled in terms of really good home form. I mean, the two previous managers who the fans, by all accounts, despised and thought were, short of the job, David Wagner and Johannes Hoff-Torp, they both helped to oversee an entire year where we weren't beaten at home. And you can have as many criticisms of those two managers as you want. I'm not backing them up in any way, but they still orchestrated fantastic home form. And yeah, 2 losses at home. I think it's just especially bad that it's just at the start of the season. I think it's obviously punctuated by a very positive summer where we all expected an instant impact. But I think it's kind of exactly what we were fearing, that with a lot of new recruits, we need time to bed them in. And that has been kind of exactly, how it's transpired so far this season. Another very key aspect of these signings was a lack of experience in English football. And I weirdly fear that this was kind of the Middlesbrough game encapsulated that. Not just players like Mirko Topic and Jakov Medic, who looked a bit lost at the point of kind of both goals, really. But also, of course, young Jacob Wright, who, for the first time in a long time, had, well, I wouldn't really say it was a poor performance, just kind of a subpar performance. Obviously got a red card, which completely kind of, killed any hope of a comeback. Obviously, Sarge ignited it. That's now 4-4 for the best striker in the championship. I think there's obviously lack of experience in England, full stop, but lack of experience at a kind of senior level as well. And yeah, I think Henry, you touched on it just in terms of the goals conceded. Obviously, 2 in 2 minutes, right at the end of the half. You could argue that was just a bad kind of lapse in kind of judgment and kind of, one that you could brush off. But also, I think that was coming. We very much deserved it, and I think, the kind of the sloppiness during that game, I think. Middlesbrough could sense a chance, and they kind of definitely took it. Dare I talk about a back 3 / a back 5? I will. You can't stop me. I run this podcast. I don't, Gary. I'm running this podcast, this one that you're watching right now. So let's talk about a back 3 / a back 5, because I think we have to, because I think for both goals in both kind of situations, the fullbacks were non-existent. The midfield didn't perhaps cover enough ground to get back, and the defenders sort of all looked at sort of 6s and 7s, so to speak. Do you just kind of think that it's a lack of training and a lack of kind of experience for the players in terms of being coached to work in this system? Or do you think we just genuinely don't have the personnel right now in order to fulfill that formation as a whole?
I wouldn't say we don't have the personnel for it. I was fortunate enough to speak to Harry Darling in the week, and he said he's still learning the game of Jose Cordoba, of Jakov Medic. And yeah, as you said earlier in your previous answer, Jack, these players need time to bed in. We've made, I think 12 senior signings, 11 or 12 senior signings. They're not just going to bed in overnight, especially when some of them have had a really reduced pre-season as well. So that is always going to be difficult. In terms of whether we should play a back 3 or back 4, every single year there's a scapegoat for Norwich, rightly or wrongly. But what I haven't liked is the fact that how fans have just turned on Jose Cordoba just seemingly for no reason. So, say, for example, I've seen so many comments recently after the Middlesbrough defeat saying we should drop Cordoba, take him out of the team, put Crescenzi in the team, and go to a back 4. Really strange, because when we played that back 3 against Millwall, yes, we lost, but people were actually saying, oh, well, Cordoba looks better than what he did last season. And then against Middlesbrough, they were like, well, Cordoba's not fit to wear the shirt. We should get him out of the team. And sandwiched between those in the league was a win. To me, that doesn't make any sense. So, yeah, I think people are overreacting and going, oh, Cordoba had a very poor season, poor game against Middlesbrough, so chuck him out of the team. Whereas, in fact, no, maybe back him, and maybe, the team would be far better playing someone, dropping someone like Schlupp and playing Crescenzi as that wing back, and then pushing Diallo further forward, because I think it's clear to see that Diallo isn't a wing back and he can help influence the attack further up the pitch. So, something like that would be a valid argument. But to me, I think that the 3 defenders will come good. They just need to learn their game, like Harry Darling told me.
I do agree with a lot of that. I do somewhat think it's a personnel thing, but I don't think it's a person. I suppose it's sort of integrated with both, because you look at the likes of Jakov Medic, and a lot of people say he's slow, which I'm not gonna say he isn't, because I think we'd all agree that he is a bit slower than you'd want him to in a back 3. But I don't think it's a thing of, oh, he's slow, get rid of him. I think it's a thing of, okay, he's a bit slower, he needs to be positioned here instead of here to keep up with a pacey forward or a pacey winger. And that's something you're going to work on in training. So I think it is a thing with time. That time will come, but I think as well the lack of an attacking creative midfielder like Marcelino Nunez really doesn't help this whatsoever, because you could see a lot in the Middlesbrough game where I think it was Cordoba most of the time that was carrying the ball up into the other half, trying to find an attacking player, a Sargent, a Stacey, a Diallo, even a Marcondes, because you look at that sort of midfield three of Marcondes, Wright, and Topic, and it's not a very creative one. I think Jacob Wright. Actually, I'll talk about Jacob Wright in a bit, but Topic, we've not brought him in because he's an amazingly creative player and amazingly skilled one. We brought him in because he's big, he's bad, and he's a good, well, hopefully a good defensive midfielder. Marcondes, I think, has been a bit poor recently. Just doesn't seem to be very active, I suppose. You can see it in Middlesbrough, where I think every time we were trying to hit them quickly, he just slowed the pace down. Obviously, I think he's only a sort of stand-in for now whilst we get Visgarn ready, but that is sort of those signs, and I think I agree with Henry that this will eventually work, and I think you can at times during that Middlesbrough game you could see it working, I think, fairly well, but it's just not consistent enough to keep it over 90 minutes. But I'm thinking and I'm hoping that we'll grow into that and we'll be able to, at a point, be able to keep it up for 90 minutes and play really well.
Yeah, it's tricky because if Liam Manning goes for a back four in the cup against Southampton and we perform really well, defend really well, even don't concede, all the fans will just, they'll be like, yeah, we told you. So in terms of the defensive formation for Southampton, that will be really fascinating. Obviously, he went for the back four against Watford, didn't go for it against Portsmouth. I think it's almost one of those where it's a new formation for almost everyone in this squad. It's definitely a new formation for this football club. I can't really remember any time where we've consistently tried to have this as our set approach. And what it is that it's essentially it's setting up our own bespoke tactical setup that our opposition need to try and figure out. If we master that back three, wing backs, whatever, teams will have to reconfigure their teams in order to match it, even do exactly the same thing. And then, if there are teams that, a bit like us at the moment, don't know how to do it, we can read straight through it. Is it one that, will take time? Absolutely. Do we want time? No, we want home wins. We want to see sparkling, brilliant goal-scoring football without any gaps in the defence. Again, exactly like you said, Henry, in terms of it's not even, tactically understanding. It's just teammates understanding where each person is and what, working with each other. These defenders, that defensive three of Cordoba, Medic, and Darling, that's now 3 games that they've played all together, and you're expecting them to all be on the same wavelength, like Puyol and PK or something. Not that Barcelona ever played, 3 at the back, or maybe they did. I don't know. I'm not a tactico. But sorry, Henry, you were going to say something.
Yeah, I do think this is where the argument is a little bit nuanced, though, because, like I said, you cannot expect them to gel and be, they're the best version of themselves playing with each other after 3 games. It's not impossible. What you can expect them to do is pick up a man who's free in space 2 yards out, who taps it into basically an empty net. There's no excuse for that goal, whether you play a back 4, back 3, whatever. To cede a goal from 2 yards out, where it's literally just a simple ball across the penalty area. That is an absolute shambles. And yes, we can talk about them not gelling, and I think it is a valid argument, a completely valid argument. But you cannot defend that defending at the same time when you've literally gifted them at least one of the goals, but probably both of them on a plate. And I think that's why the result was frustrating, as Liam Manning said in his post-match interview. It wasn't a case of Borough were head and shoulders the better team. It was that Norwich's individual errors gifted Middlesbrough their 3 points.
Yeah, and like we said, I think that there were other chances, and obviously Kovacevic made a fantastic save in the second half. There were chances. I think Topic cut out what could have been an open goal for, I think it was Whittaker. So the scoreline was 2, but it could have been 4 or 5. But it wasn't. So there we go. It didn't dent our goal difference that much. So when we push into the playoffs, we'll remember those brilliant tackles and those brilliant saves. Maybe, I don't know. Let's move on from defending the defending, as Henry put it, to midfielding the midfield. That's not a word, but I'm going to make it. I run this podcast. Yeah, I think we've always sort of spoken in the recent weeks about our midfield being very kind of saturated with lots of abundance of players, and it's sort of becoming very clear that midfield abundance is now being tested. Obviously, Jacob Wright will now be out for, I think it's 3 games, but that will include one of the cup games anyway. Nunez is obviously out, I think, until after the international break. Topic, bless him, that's now kind of a match and a half where he's looked a little bit leggy and a little bit kind of off the pace. Again, question marks over his pre-season. And I think the other enigma was our dear friend Kenny McLean, who came back from injury probably a lot earlier than he should have done and set up one of the best assists that I've seen in a while. And yeah, definitely changed the game and definitely looked like he was the heartbeat of that midfield. Obviously, again, we've spoken about formations and what we should and shouldn't play. What do you think in terms of personnel, in terms of fitting the system versus quality? What would you say is kind of your dream midfield 2 moving forwards now?
Well, it's Jack. I'll be honest with you. It's the same we were saying last season and the season before and the season before. In the Championship at this level, Norwich looks severely weaker when Kenny McLean is not in the squad. And as you said there, he had a short cameo. Whether he's still 100% fit or not, I do not know. I'd very much doubt it. But again, produces a phenomenal ball and Norwich back in the game. So, it's so clear how instrumental he is to this team. And when Kenny McLean is fit and firing on all cylinders, I genuinely think he is crucial and the results can pick up because we have a midfield anchor in the team. And people have always said we've struggled to replace Alexander Tete. Well, just imagine if Kenny McLean goes, we would be screwed. We've had 3 years now, 4 years at Championship level where we could get in someone who does Kenny McLean's role as effectively, and we seemingly haven't ever been able to track down anyone who's as effective. So for me, Kenny McLean has to be in there. It's then about who you'd partner with him. Jacob Wright, yes, a very good prospect, future Norwich captain, no doubt, I'm sure. However, he's had quite a poor start to the season. And let's make no mistake about it, he was having a very poor game before he got the red card anyway. So him missing 3 games, I'm not saying that's necessarily a good thing. but it might be nice just to get those fresh legs in. It's difficult because you're looking at other people who could be in that position. Liam Gibbs, probably not. Slimani, probably not. And then you're looking at players like Schwartau or Visgarden, who are probably better going forward, who, again, won't necessarily fit this system alongside Kenny McLean. The only one who you could say is could maybe stake a claim for it is a Mankwa Forson, and he's injured as well. So it's really difficult, I think, at the minute. But yeah, as long as McLean is in that midfield, he is the main one, and then hopefully he can make other players play better, no matter who his partner is.
Yeah, I think Harry's absolutely hit the nail on the head there. I think Kenny, we've brought in so many players over the past even 5 years to try and replace Kenny, and we haven't still. I mean, I don't think it's a thing that many Norwich fans want to hear, because I think there might be, I don't know why, I think there is people don't want to see him stay because he's getting on, and I think people do something I don't agree with is that he can't do it anymore because he's old or whatever. But he shows his game and week in, week out, whenever he starts, that he can still do it, regardless of age. He's been arguably our most crucial player over the past 5 years, arguably more crucial than, a sergeant, a science, a gun, because he's sort of been that unnamed hero that is really ran that midfield. And, we see it, we start to see it with Topic and Wright, who, yes, we know they're good players. We know Wright's a blooming good player because he was last season, but he's joined now and he's had quite a poor start, especially with the red card. And it's really sort of that struggle again of going, well, yes, okay, Topic and Jacob Wright are younger. They're probably more, if you imagine like a car, you can imagine them like Jacob Wright and Topic as a Ferraris, just as an example. And you go, they look good, they look sleek, they're newer. And Kenny McLean is like that sort of, I'm going to say like a Land Rover. I'm not a big car person, but like a Land Rover who's been there. You've had about sort of 5-6 years and it's sort of getting on a bit and you're thinking about replacing it. But you drive the Ferraris for a little while and they break down within, 3 months. But that Range Rover, even though you've had it, over 5 years or whatever, it's still going strong. It doesn't need to be fixed or replaced. It's still going strong, and that's the point. We don't need new Ferraris that look and sound good and will be more expensive than this old Range Rover that is Kenny McLean. We need something that works and works well and is reliable, and that's what Kenny McLean is. And then, sorry, Henry, go ahead.
I was just going to say as well, at the time of recording, and by the time this podcast comes out, Norwich wouldn't have yet played their next game, which is, of course, Southampton in the League Cup on Tuesday night. Don't get me wrong, I do really rate Liam Manning's man management skills. I think he's a great coach, and he's a great person to oversee that playing squad. And if he deems that Kenny McLean is fit to start that League Cup game, then what a game that is for Kenny McLean. Because if you're someone like Mirko Topic and you're seen as the guy to play next to Kenny McLean, it's the perfect game tomorrow night to play the both of them and bed them in. Yes, there are going to be changes because it's the second round of the League Cup. Of course, we're going to make changes. However, you need to get players like Kenny McLean starting, and ideally with the captain's armband as well, because he is the club captain. So, when you're coming back from injury, those games are perfect to go, okay, well, not necessarily get 90 minutes under your belt, but let's get a start. And then we'll ease your fitness back in. And if that was me tomorrow night, if I'm looking at Topic and going, look, we've brought you in to make an instant impact. You're really strong. You're relatively good on the ball. we want you with Kenny McLean going forward. Tomorrow's the best chance to do it.
Yeah, I was going to say I think Topic should play alongside Kenny McLean, and I think Henry's just stolen everything I was going to say about that. So thank you, Henry. But and then you've obviously got that one sort of cam up top. We've had Marcondes in there, and he hasn't looked great. But I think we've got Schwartau, we've got Vistgoran now. Put one of them in and just let them, start. Let them engage in English football properly, because you can do whatever you want in training and train them however you want. Ultimately, what's going to get them more experience and what's going to make them better players is by playing in games. And we made those. I think they were both sort of statement signers at the time, especially Vistgoran, but I suppose you can argue for Schwartau as well. They were both sort of our statement signings, these young attacking players, and yet from the start of this season and even last season, they weren't getting much playtime unless it was off the bench. And so I think especially against Southampton tomorrow, as of recording this, you've got to just put them in and let them adapt and let them find their own holes in their game. Because worst case scenario, especially tomorrow, if they don't have a great game and they have some gaps, we can address them rather than us waiting for another month or so, then starting to play them because we think they're acclimatized to English football, and then all of a sudden find out actually they've got so many gaps, and now we've got a month less to try and fix them, which will impact our season greatly. So I think that has got to be sort of that midfield three that we have: McLean, a Topic, and either a Schwartau or a Vistgoran.
Well, yeah, I mean, I really liked your car analogy. Just going back to that, I would probably swap a Ferrari for a Lotus, perhaps something more traditional and English and Norfolk. But Mirko Topic is definitely a combine. He's nothing like a Ferrari. He frightens the life out of me. He do. But yeah, I mean, I also think get Magic Miller in the dugout with Manning. I think he's got a noggin on him. He does. You can't. You must do canary call, Henry. You can't do both.
I know. I'll have to multitask. I can
yeah, I mean,
canary call. There you go.
Well, there you go. Yeah, so if I were to offer my tactical insight to what I would do with the midfield, I think ideally you sort of need one of the midfielders to be able to slot into that defence. Just in terms of how if the fullbacks were to push forward and we were to have periods where we'd be in a back four, so that's probably where like a Topic or a Kenny comes in. I weirdly don't think that you can have both Kenny and Mirko in there. I just feel like that's two kind of weirdly similar players. Jacob Wright, I think he needs to play. I think he needs minutes. I think there's potential there. But I think obviously, he'll have time out because of his suspension. So then maybe you need one more defensive midfielder and maybe you need one more sort of creative midfielder. Nunez obviously fits that bill perfectly. But is there a magical world where he could maybe slot into that sort of number 10 position even, alongside a Cernat or a Chris Gorham or a Diallo or so? I don't really know. Yeah, if you'd put a gun to my head and say midfield 2 moving forwards, let's throw it back to 2022 and say McLean and Nunez under Dean Smith. Yeah. Let's get Sinani back as well. Yeah, he scored in the Bundesliga. He's a Bundesliga scorer. Yeah, I mean, imagine the pain of having us lose and then seeing Sinani score and Borja Sainz getting a brace for Porto. Great guys, but yes, I mean in terms of the sort of performances and the results so far, it's been very bizarre in terms of a 1-2 loss, and then a 2-1 win, and then a 2-1 win, and then a 1-2 loss. What that tells me about Norwich City so far is that we're far from prolific, but we're also not that leaky defensively. There's obviously kind of weirdly issues at both ends of the pitch. Which do you think is the end of the pitch that you think Manning needs to put the most legwork into?
Well, it has to be the defence, because as long as you've got a certain American striker up front, the goals take care of themselves, don't they? And we've seen that Manning came in and the first thing he did was revamp the defence. So he's already prioritised that and has seen that as an area of weakness as to why Norwich City finished where they did last season. So I think saying anything else would be disingenuous of Norwich City and where they currently are. But yeah, I think going forward, Sargent needs to stay, doesn't he? Because if he does, that takes care of itself. You know, that yes, we've won 2 games, lost 2 games, been highly inconsistent in terms of performances. The one thing that has been consistent is Josh Sargent scoring. He's scored in every single game so far this season. And without him, Norwich do look like they've struggled to create chances. So, yeah, it's huge that he stays.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is the most consistent I've ever seen Norwich City, so fair enough. But I think it's not a I like the question of where does Manning need to sort of focus on, and I don't think there is a particular area as per se that we need to focus on. I think it's more the transitions, whether we're going from defense to attack or attack to defense or whatever, because we are struggling so much off of that, because it feels like there's different ideas. We'll win the ball back and we'll be with the defense, and they'll be thinking, okay, we've got the ball back, they invested men up, let's try and play this quickly, play this up, and try and make a good chance out of it at least. And then it'll reach the midfield, and they'll go, hang on a minute, we want to slow it down, so we're going to pass it back. And then we'll do it, and then that'll be the thing for a little while. And then we'll try and get it up top. And again, it's that pace change, because our defense is now going, okay, we want to try and play it slower. Let's play it slower. And they'll pass it to, I don't know, let's say Stacey or Marcondes. Maybe not Marcondes, I suppose. But we'll use them as an example, and then they'll go, oh, let's go quick, we need to rush, and then all of a sudden we lose the ball, and our defence and our midfield going, hang on a minute, we want to slow down. I thought we were slowing down, I didn't realise we were going quicker, and then it's just a muddle, and we need to be better on that. And you can see, I mean, during the Middlesbrough game, and I think the times during the Millwall game as well, the likes of Cordoba and Medic are moving up the field because they want that pace change and they're not being given it by anyone else. So I think we have to work on our transitions, and we have to just be better on those, whether that be setting a universal tempo for everyone, or whether that is, I don't know. I'm not a football manager. I've not done my coaching badges, but work has to be done on that, and it needs to be urgent, in my opinion.
Well, speak to Henry, because he's got all of his coaching badges. I'm actually going to disagree with Henry completely on this, and I probably, in my personal opinion, I think the attack needs to be the thing that is tweaked, mostly on the basis of Joshua Sargent. I think if he does leave, as we've all discussed multiple times, we are, a little bit doomed. And I think, yes, there's creativity as long as the ball's getting towards him. But maybe some of those attacking players are sat there thinking, oh, well, I don't need to necessarily shoot or be really clinical. I just give it to Josh and it'll be fine. I'm not going to critique Diallo, because I think he's been fantastic. And I think he almost got his first goal. But I think he just needs to, push up the field a little bit more, and be a little bit more confident in terms of his attacking choices. Cernat's obviously quite a questionable start to the campaign. He needs, a kick up the backside and needs to be, providing a bit of an end product. And I generally think, you obviously think back to Farker Ball, we conceded 1 or 2 per match, but we also had the confidence to score 3 or 4. And that was the go-hung crazy football that we love. I think having our back three and, whether there's space in between fullbacks or centre backs, whatever, if our goalkeeper is a little bit loony and comes out of his box and heads it aimlessly, that'll happen. That'll happen. But I think there is a little something that's missing in that attack, and it might be a certain curly-haired Danish guy as well.
And that's the reason why we need to. Sorry to Brian again, but that's the reason why I think Liam Manning can also adapt to his surroundings. Because at the minute, whether he's telling him to play like that or not, but at the minute it does seem that we're playing with a sweeper and with a ball-playing goalkeeper. And no matter what your thoughts are on that, yes, we've had 3 games now to see Vladan Kovacevic, and yeah, one of his strengths is his ability to save, prevent goals and save the ball, and his shot stopping seems to be brilliant, and it seems to be a clear upgrade over Angus Gunn or other goalkeepers we've had before. However, he has got that streak in him where he is a bit rash. I think he gave away the ball twice against Middlesbrough, where he was literally just turning, had no real pressure from Norwich players to pass the ball. He was literally just left to his own devices and lost it twice. And Middlesbrough should have capitalised on both of those occasions. And I did listen to a pretty famous podcast once, call it the peppification of lower league football. And it does seem that way, for someone like Kovacevic. Yes, you want them to be the main man and be as good as they are when it comes to their shot stopping ability. But do they need to be that sweeper 24/7? No. And, does that come from the coaching or is it something that's just bred in him? Because, I would like to see him be a bit more reserved. Don't get me wrong. If there's a pass on, then yeah, come out of your box, make that pass. But if you're then trying to take on attackers and you're messing around with it when there's no pressure whatsoever, again, it just allows the opposition to pounce on another stupid mistake. So yeah, I think that's an issue as well, and that's something that Liam Manning will have to keep his eye on and maybe tweak as well. Just reining Vladan Kovacevic in a bit.
Yeah, and in terms of our alternative goalkeeper options, we're now even more limited because George Long has gone to Southampton. So, he's not going to play this season. So, well done, George, and well done, your agent. Speaking of transfer business, I'll transition quickly. I think on the whole, we generally agree that the business so far this summer has been positive. We still have Josh Sargent as it stands. And yeah, 11 players in, all kind of in positions that we definitely required. But with now Jack Stacey on the sidelines for probably a couple of weeks for that nasty injury that he had against Middlesbrough, and Callum Fisher obviously being linked away, we might not even have a right back at all. Obviously there's injuries to Forson. There's question marks over, like Matthew said, about Malcondes and Cernat's in that kind of number 10 position. Do you think that the business is done for this summer? Or do you think with, what is it now, probably a week left of the window, do you think that we still should be looking for maybe a couple of other options, maybe a few little sort of Premier League loans on deadline day? Or do you think this is perhaps our dear friend Will Grant will love this. An opportunity for our academy. What do you think?
I think in terms of the fullbacks and that fullback scenario, I think as I've said, it's probably the most depth we have in terms of sheer quality. I think when with Kellen Fisher coming in for Jack Stacey, you've got someone there who's really young, who's really eager, and someone who the fans love and has put in some great performances in a Norwich City shirt. And also, you've got Jack Stacey, who has been here now, under David Wagner, I think, Johannes Hoftorp, and Jack Wilshere, and Liam Manning, and they've all backed him. Like Jack Wilshere's comments on Jack Stacey, I think were telling. And Liam Manning comes in. One of the first things that happen in the summer is Jack Stacey signs a new deal. So in terms of right backs, I don't think we have to worry. You know, we have gone down that route of signing a more experienced left back in terms of Jeffrey Schlupp, and that was an area that Norwich were looking to recruit experience. Yes, we've played him as a left wing back this season to mixed success so far, but I think if we do that with a right back, it would be disingenuous because Schlupp came in wanting to play games and knowing that he'd stand a good chance of playing games. Even if we got in someone playing in that right wing back position or that right back position, I don't necessarily think they'd hold it down when Jack Stacey is back fit and when we have both Stacey and Fisher as options.
Well, first of all, I'd just like to give a shout to the air raid siren currently outside Henry Miller's house.
Yeah, someone decided to rev their motorbike full pelt. So thank you.
Oh, I thought it was our Ferrari midfield going past.
It was
anyway.
Kenny McLean, yeah.
No, he's the Land Rover, Henry. He's the Land Rover. Jacob Wright's the Ferrari. But I agree absolutely with Henry Miller and the fact that we have such good quality in depth. I mean, Stacey and Fisher over the past season has been an incredible battle at right back. You know, they've both played outstandingly well. It's been a great competition for them both. And I was worried, to be honest, that Stacey was going to leave this past summer because I thought, well, it seems like Fisher's going to be the number one at right back, and I feel like I'm not sure if Stacey would want to stay, but he has stayed. He's proved me wrong, and he has looked brilliant this start of the season. He looks perfect in this system as a attacking sort of wing back / midfielder. He's outshone everyone, and that injury on Saturday really sort of worried me. I don't usually get worried by injuries, but that one worried me just because of how good of a fit Jack Stacey is. And, you know, I like Kellen Fisher a lot, but I think he's a much more defensive fullback. You know, I think when you think of Fisher, you don't think of his attacking prowess, as per se. You think of his beautiful tackles and his ability on the ball that can help us get up in transition. And so to now be going to a right wing back is a bit scary from my point of view with Fisher, but at the same time, I have full trust that he can pick it up fairly quickly while Stacey is out. So maybe worried isn't the right word for me, but I think I can see that it'll take a bit of time to learn. But I think in terms of transfer business, I think this is it. This should be it. I don't really think there's much we need to do. I think, you know, now that Stacey's likely going to be injured for a few weeks, we'll be very unlikely to sell Fisher because after Fisher, I don't think we have another right back after Fisher. I could be wrong though. Well, not like a natural right back, I should say. But you know, it's definitely not a right wing back unless we want to whack Schlupp there for the Bants. But I don't really think we need to do much business. I think it's, in my eyes at least, it's unlikely that Sargent will leave in this last week and a bit. I think Fisher leaving is, like I say, is really an option for Norwich right now. And I don't really see many others that would be in that field of could be going on on like a deadline day deal or something. And I think it was Jack that said about loans from a Premier League side, but I don't really think we need that right now. Maybe in January. I think we have a good enough squad right now to let it coast out, see what happens by January, and then if it has all gone wrong by January, then we can sort of hit a panic button. But realistically, I don't think many people are gonna expect Norwich to be like we started until January. I think we're expecting a rise, and I think this is a team that's good enough to get rising and become a better team than what we see now. So, no, I don't really think there's much transfer business needed. Obviously, I could be wrong about the likes of Sargent and Fisher, in which case, panic button in the last week of the transfer window is needed. But I'm maybe delusionally thinking that they're both going to stay for at least until January, which that's even if they do leave in January, it gives us a bit of time to sort things out. So I don't think we really do need any signings in this last week.
What I find interesting is what you've said there, Matthew, about Callum Fisher and his ability, or potentially lack thereof, to get forward and be the instigator in an attack. And what I thought was, with Jack Stacey going down injured, is he that first domino where he falls and then you have to bring certain players who maybe are on the fringes into the squad in order to help? So say, for example, if you're playing Callum Fisher, do you then say, well, hold on, we know he's not going to bomb forward and we want a wing back to bomb forward, and then you play Diallo there and you have got him as the attacking threat going forward on that wings, but you know that you're going to be incredibly exposed. So then do you bring in a Shane Duffy, an experienced head, and someone who slot in and with the sole purpose of covering for Diallo then? So with Stacey going off injured and sort of the lack of Callum Fisher then bombing forward, do you think that is a domino that you could see the likes of Duffy potentially come in if we are having to play someone like Diallo as that wing back and then get really exposed when he's not necessarily tracking back?
I think anything's possible with Norwich City. It always has been, whether that be a good thing, whether that be a bad thing. Anything has always been possible. So I don't think people would be a fan of Duffy sort of coming back into the squad, and I can understand why. But you can't deny stuff like his experience and his sort of knowledge of like where defenders should be and what wing back should be doing. Okay, I don't really think he's played much of his career in a back three with wing backs. Admittedly, I mean, I don't know for sure, but you think of the likes of Brighton and Fulham, they don't really scream like teams that are playing a back three with wing backs or whatever. Maybe Brighton, but I don't believe they have in his time there. But just even if him himself isn't a great defender or doesn't have like the greatest of matches, if he can lead the likes of a Cordoba or a Medic or a Darling to have great matches with his experience and with his knowledge of where they should be, then you have to accept that as a win. And I watch a lot of pro gaming, and one of the things that's very common in there is something called an IGL, an in-game leader, where they're not the greatest player of all time. They're not going to be constantly making plays and doing, being mechanically great, but they've got such a great mind and they're so knowledgeable about the game that they can lead their team into these great moments. And I think this could be a stage where Duffy can be that sort of leader of the defence.
Well, there we go, Shane. If you're watching, which I know you watch every week, there's hope for you yet. What do I think? I think we play Jurasek at right wing back. I think that'll be fine. If Diallo can play at left wing back, then Jurasek can play at right wing back. I wouldn't play them both. That would just be completely out the window. Maybe Jurasek can go to the gym and bulk up a bit and work on his defending. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, Kellen doesn't strike me as the kind of overly forward fullback. He's very, all of his stats sort of linked towards him being a very more sort of deeper lying defensive right back. We've got to kind of work with it, I guess. We'd have to speak to Will if there are any good academy right backs. But part of me kind of thinks, if there's an attacking player, in the Premier League that's, a team doesn't want that we could afford on loan. We've just got about £800,000 from Bologna. Thanks, Johnny. So, there's a bit of cash floating around. Someone like, I can't remember his name, Ramazani from Leeds, him on loan, that would be decent. That would add something to this team. It would just be on loan whilst their Leeds are going up and staying up probably. Yeah, I mean, the idea of kind of having one right back and that being Kellen Fisher, but playing in a kind of back five, I don't know, maybe another more traditional right wing back would be good. I can't remember who his right wing back was at Bristol City. I think it might have been McCrory. I don't know. Don't quote me. Bristol City fans, if you're watching, tell me who your right wing back was. I didn't watch you every week, unfortunately. I don't have time. Before we get on to quick fire hot takes, which we do have, of course, just hold on, everyone. Another just final quick one from me, just in terms of there not being another home game at Carrow Road until I think the 20th of September, when Wrexham come to visit. Because obviously we've got Blackburn away and then Coventry away, who haven't started the season well at all, have they, Coventry? 7-1 QPR, what were you doing? Do you think that's it's almost a relief that we're not at home for such a long period of time, given our decent away form? Or do you think these players are kind of thinking, no, I want to really get a result in front of the Carra Road crowd because we've been pants so far?
Yeah, I think it depends, really. I think the longer that run goes on, the more that stigma will play on the minds of those Norwich players. So yeah, they do need a result at home, and they need a result at home fast. So hopefully they can win tomorrow and get that result at home.
I'm gonna present a different angle of view on this because I think for the past however many seasons, probably like 3 or 4, we've known Norwich as a team that's very, very good at home but very poor away. What if this is the switch where we suddenly become very poor at home, not great, but then we become very good away? This is, in my eyes, a brilliant test, a brilliant little run of away games to really show what we're like away from home. And if we do become a very good team away from home, then not a great one at home, then will it be a big difference to what we're used to? Just the opposite way around, where we used to be very good at home and now we're very poor at home, and then we used to be very bad away, but now we're very good away. So I think this is a very good run. I think Coventry as well is going to be a very interesting game because I think you're looking at one of the league's top leaders, probably with Sheffield United's poor start, I think probably the most likely to get promoted right now. So it's going to be a very good test. And then Wrexham at home is going to be another good test. Hopefully we can get a few goals with Connor Cody and Danny Ward as part of their defence, although they do have Callum Doyle now, so they're making up for it slightly. Minuscule, but...
Of course, Blackburn as well. We all know that their captain this season is Todd Cantwell, so that will probably come back to bite us in typical Norwich fashion, like things like that always do.
It's all fun games, isn't it? Don't worry. The season will soon be over. It'll be May before you know it. It's not even the end of August. By the way, I didn't ignore the existence of the Carabao Cup game tomorrow. I'm not really that bothered. Is this not the most boring League Cup tie ever? Like, it's bland. I'm not going, by the way, because I never go. According to Will Grant, I just stay at home on my sofa. Meh. Anyway, let's move on. Let's move on and finish off this fantastic podcast with quick fire hot takes. We've got a traditional five. Yes, I have written five. I can't count tonight. Question one: if you could pick a Norwich legend in their prime to fix this currently in Manning side, who would you pick and why?
Either Wes Houlihan or someone like Darren Huckabee. Darren Huckabee just off that wing as one of the number 10s, I think would be amazing, to be honest with you. So yeah, probably Darren Huckabee.
Apologies for interrupting there, Henry, but I think I'm going to have to agree with Houlihan. I think that creative spark in the midfield is invaluable. I think he was one of the best midfielders ever in the Championship. And having that playing ability and that creative ability would be invaluable to this Liam Manning side.
I don't really know. I do agree. A prime Wes in that sort of little role just in behind the striker would be magical. I kind of someone like Kevin Keelan just to be a good shot stopper. I'm trying to think of a legendary, really top quality centre back, and it's really evading me right now. Especially one that would fit a back three. I don't think there's ever been a legendary Norwich defender that's done really well in the back three. 2020, 2021, Ollie Skip in that midfield, who started for Leicester, I think, against Charlton, and Leicester beat Charlton. So have that, Matthew Saunders, who said he wasn't very good. Yeah, Ollie Skip. That's the best I can muster. What is the most overrated part of the matchday experience? Not necessarily at Carrow Road, but it can specifically be at Carrow Road. But generally, in terms of the matchday experience, what is the most overrated part?
The halftime entertainment.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's fair. Watching, random people on their stag do try and kick the crossbar in order to win a holiday to Tampa or whatever it is. Or I don't even know what it is. What is it this season? Are they?
I have no idea. Probably still that crossbar challenge.
I disagree. I think the time entertainment is fabulous, and it gives us some great moments like the Zor balls and the West Brom game last season where someone got married, and there was a chorus of "You made a mistake." I think was that it, or
I think so. Yeah.
Overrated. I don't really think there is much overrated about a match day experience. I can give you an underrated one if that would suit.
Go on then.
I think the travel is very underrated. I've always liked traveling in and of itself, but something about going to the football on a bus or a train or in a car or wherever, just something about it feels just such football. And you obviously the photos of people with their pints on the train or whatever. I think it's very underrated.
I don't know. I wrote this question. I can't even think of an answer. I think having to wait for a beer. I don't know. I'm just watching Everton's new stadium where they've got the self-serving bars where you just literally tap a card and the beer comes out. Like for a beverage at Fratton Park, it felt like Freddie and Will and I were going to wait until the end of the match. So I don't know, overrated or just annoying? Just annoying, I'd say. Who is the best goalkeeper Norwich have had in the last 25 years? since 2000. So when you were born, Henry, before you were born, Matthew.
In terms of pedigree, probably Tim Krul.
In terms of playing for Norwich, I think John Ruddy.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, instinctively, it's got to be one of those two, isn't it? I don't know, maybe Rob Green, but I don't know. It's a speckled season; it was a bit off. I'll have to agree with Henry on this. I think
that being said, in the last 25 years, the only goalkeepers who've won Player of the Season, I believe, are Tim Krul and Andy Marshall. So do chuck him into the debate.
we do not. We know that's one of them, I'm afraid. No. Here's a sort of interesting one. Should safe standing be implemented throughout Carrow Road?
No, because it would be pointless in the South Stand.
As much as I like it, I have to agree with Henry, the fact that half our fans, especially the South Stand, sit down anyway, and it's only really in the Barclay people stand. So I'm gonna have to agree with Henry.
Yeah, I mean, like have the option to let them stand safely, but don't let it compromise capacity or anything. Like people like to sit and watch us concede, however many we concede. But yes, the lower Barclay is there safe standing in the lower Barclay? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, so keep it there. And final question, not really football related. What's the best part of Riverside? You can't say Carrow Road. Carrow Road doesn't count. I'll count anything within the general Riverside complex.
B&M, because you can get bargains from there, and they have a Doctor Who range for B&M.
Henry, there's so much to Riverside and B&M. You need to go out, my friend. You need to. Matthew, please.
We found the one and only
B&M is a
B&M fan.
perfectly fine answer. I was just kind of expecting something a little bit more exciting.
For me, it's one of two. It's either the Hollywood Bowl, I think is very good, and I think the Costa coffee, the Costa there and the grapes is very underrated. It's a two. Don't give me that, Jack. It's a 2-in-1. Great meeting place. What more do you want?
Yeah, I agree with Hollywood Bowl. I went there for my 10th birthday. I remember it vividly. And if you ask, yes, I put the barriers up. I'm not here for any of this gutter nonsense. No, I want to actually see my bowling ball deflect off the walls.
Gutter
It's got to be Queen of Iceni, isn't it? Though, nothing beats Queen of Iceni. It's is there a better Weatherspoons in all of England?
Yes.
No. Queen of Iceni is the best. Either that or the Pizza Hut. I really like the Pizza Hut on Riverside.
Queen of Iceni is not even the best Weatherspoons in Norwich. So no.
Let's save this debate for perhaps another podcast. What is your favourite Weatherspoons in Norwich? Do you think our midfield is like a Ferrari or a Range Rover? Please leave us a comment down below. Let us know if you've got this far. If you have indeed got this far, please leave us a like on the YouTube. Leave us lots of comments. Subscribe to us on YouTube. I think you can subscribe to us on Spotify. We would love to have your ears and your eyes. This has, of course, been episode 48 of the MyFootballWriter podcast. Thank you so much for listening. I've been Jack Wright. I've been with Henry Miller and Matthew Saunders, and we'll see you again very soon.